Hello, everybody, and welcome again to The Sacred Life. Once again, I'm your host, David Baylor, welcoming you all. And I have with me this evening John, my infamous brother John, who occasionally drops in and talks with us, and also occasionally drops in and leaves unsolicited comments in the chat. Tonight, we're going to be talking about, or in this video, we're going to be talking about why the entertainment industry, or why the music industry, maybe a little more specifically, is dying, and why that's a good thing. John, why don't you give us a little bit of your thoughts on that?
Oh, sure. As far as why it's dying, I mean, I'm not going to analyze too much the death of this thing, but you'll hear lots of people concerned, especially about AI innovations. What does AI mean for the future of music? What does it mean for the future of television and movies? For the future of writing? Like all the different entertainment media. Then there's this concern that AI is going to take over this and AI is going to ruin it. Maybe not maybe, but there's certainly been concerns about the dangers or the potential death of the entertainment industry even before AI, with movies kind of losing their prominence, it seems, and people were concerned about Disney dying off, and Disney is like the juggernaut in movies and a lot of television too. And people were concerned about them dying before this AI stuff came in. So for a long time, we've been hearing this narrative that the movie industry is dying, the music industry is dying, whatever art form you want to list, it's dying.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of creative people that are concerned about this. There are a lot of Christian people that express concern, like this is something awful, something really important in our culture is being lost, and what's it being replaced with? Just AI slop. Well, the way that we do music, and I'll start off focusing on music. What we think of when we think of music is not what anybody in history has thought of when they thought of music. When we talk about the songs that meant a lot to you when you were growing up, that you listened to this popular band or that popular band, all this popular music that was recorded in California or whatever, that really shaped your life, this is not part of the traditional human experience. So the thing that's being lost is an industry. The thing that's being lost is a commercial product, and it's a commercial product that actually destroyed. I mean, I want to say destroyed real music, and I don't want to say that the people that have created music in the music industry, they're real musicians. Like what they're creating is actual music. So I'm not saying that. I'm not judging the quality of it in that way. What I'm saying is that in the past, music meant singing with your friends, in your family, in your church. Music was something that you participated in and was not something that you consumed. So if people are saying, "Oh no, the music industry is dying," then like, okay, well, if the music industry dies and authenticity is lost, or whatever you want to identify as being the positive quality, if it's lost, okay, start singing with your friends, because art traditionally is not something that exists to for art's sake, or for us to praise the person that created it or anything like that. Art is something that binds the community together. So again, if we're losing the music industry, even me as like somebody who's spent a lot of my life, I'm not really in the music industry, but as a professional musician, I still look at the death of the music industry and I think, well, good riddance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot we can go into on that, but it is kind of like this corporatization of American culture. And, I think we're at a place in, I guess, the progress of American culture where pretty much everybody, no matter what side of the various divisions there are, agrees that like this corporate culture that's been constructed is artificial and nobody really likes it. And our entertainment industry is a prime example of how that has worked out. You contrast that, you go, for example, to a European country or to an Asian country or something like that, you'll see there's a vibrant traditional culture, people still often having a strong connection to their traditional music. Like I remember being in Switzerland, like going to the like the local, I mean, it's essentially a tavern, and dancing and music, that's still a central part of the culture for a lot of people. And in America, that's pretty much all gone. Something this participatory element of our musical culture really no longer exists, and all we have are like mass marketed, I guess you could call them facsimiles of that, in terms of like the concert culture and stuff like that. Thinking of like the
Yeah.
Swifties and stuff like that. But it's like
Well,
it
even then, this is, I mean, the Swifties is actually kind of a good example of the thing that I'm saying is lost, because you're not having like multiple generations of people gathered together. Like, you don't have a community. I mean, you might say like you're part of the Swifty community or something, and like while you're at a
right,
big concert that's a thrilling, exciting event, you might feel like some connection with the people around you, but it doesn't bring communities together. It
right.
doesn't connect old people with young people, and everybody in between. And traditional music used to do that.
Yeah, right. But like at the same time, traditional music isn't. How should I say? Traditional music isn't. Like you're just playing a bunch of songs that are 300 years old or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
Because like traditional music is also something that is alive, and it's always kind of moving. It's not. Because we have kind of this phenomenon in America where people who are into traditional music, what that means is we're playing really old songs,
hmm
and so it's even then it's a dead culture, it's a dead art form. And
Right.
then in contrast, there again, like looking at European traditional music, where the people performing the traditional music are very often performing their own compositions, or even
hmm
like making it up in the
Yeah.
context of
Yeah.
whatever event is going on. So,
Yeah. I
uh,
would say what makes music traditional is the role that it is playing, rather
yeah,
than how old the song is.
right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, because like what I was thinking with that is that these uh these traditional forms of music, they are an ancient culture, but the way that people play the music and the music that they're playing is not the same thing that it was even 50 years ago,
hmm
let alone 500 years ago, or however ancient you want to think that it is. But that's true also of like Appalachian music. Is There's a degree to which it's crystallized to like the early to mid 20th century. But then there's also this degree to which, like, no, this is a living thing, and the way people play that music today is not the same that their ancestors did 200 years ago.
Yeah. Right.
And what I want to bring out with that is just the idea that traditional culture doesn't mean a dead art form. Like it's the opposite of that. It's actually a
hmm
living and vibrant culture. And like what you said, that it's the role that it plays. Um, because the role that it plays is not that it's something to be consumed. And I think that's a big difference between modern music and older, more traditional forms of music. Is modern music is produced to be consumed, um, whereas older forms of music are something to be are something to be participated in. And part of what that means is the participants are going to contribute something of themselves to the culture.
Yeah. Right. And when you sing with other people, like this is you could just say like this is a really, really healthy thing to do.
Hmm.
Singing is good for your body. It's good for your spirit. Singing with other people is good for your spirit and good for your community.
Yeah.
I mean, like this, it does make you healthier. It does strengthen your bonds with other people. So like it makes you physically and socially, you could say, healthier. Um, Traditionally, you would view music as being something that's you could just say healing. You could say like something that brings you back into the proper order, brings you back into the community, and brings you into like corrects what's wrong within your own spirit, brings you back into like the proper way of life. And I'm hesitating to use like really um, I don't know if I want to say religious sounding language, um, but the effect that it has, religious and in the sense of like bring you back in alignment with the order of the universe or something like this. This feels like too big and grand of language. but it, like I say, it does make you healthier. It does strengthen bonds within the community. It establishes an identity of the community. And I mean, that's kind of what would be meant, partly what would be meant by a phrase like brings you into alignment with the order of the universe. But like traditionally, that you would sort of view music as being that way. And again, not something that you keep saying consume. We have this idea of like art as something to be entertaining. Or when we engage in art, like what we're engaging in is almost like the art itself. But traditionally, if you're engaging in art, you're not engaging in the art itself. You're engaging in what the art is pointing you to. You're engaging in the community. You're engaging with like real things that are actually ultimately important.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's important. I think I don't know. I think there's a lot of ways in which you can compare that to how sensibilities of like the Christian life and especially Christian worship have evolved alongside the have evolved alongside our ideas of music and culture because this is a criticism I remember hearing a lot when I was growing up, and a criticism people still will direct towards like the, I guess you would say, the more corporate model megachurch form of worship, is that this is a production and you go to what is essentially a Christian rock concert, um and you don't call it this, but you're essentially going there to be entertained. And so like worship then becomes something to be, how should I say this, worship becomes something to be consumed. Worship becomes kind of a form of entertainment. And I don't know, like, I guess the argument I'm trying to present with that is like I feel like what's happened is this faulty understanding of music and culture is really having an impact on our entire way of life, and that's filtering into our religion.
Yeah, I mean, when you bring it
Right.
into the religious context, then this is actually like a huge disaster. If
Yeah.
you've moved away from art as something that you participate in to something that you consume,
Mhm.
then that would sort of mean like, okay, you're not participating in worship anymore. But you
Yeah.
can't. How are you gonna? You can't consume worship.
Right.
Because there's some other musician up there playing it for you. Like your body has to be in this. Your body, like uh, I mean, when I say your body, like singing is a very bodily thing, and like the more that you sing, the more that your entire body is engaged in it. And so I almost feel like saying that you sing with your body, like to people that aren't musicians or aren't singers, I feel like you won't exactly understand what that even means. But again, like the more you sing, the more like your whole body is engaged in it.
Yeah.
So if you're like worshiping through music, where you are singing and you're singing with the other people, then your
Yeah.
body is engaged with it. Your voice is lifted up with the voices of the other people that are around you. So you're doing this thing all together. I mean, this is um, like it's not an accident that this is connected with the idea of like the worship of the elders before the throne in heaven.
Yeah. Right.
That you're engaging and participating in the same thing. Like, what are you gonna? You can't consume the worship of the elders before the throne.
Mhm.
That's something that you can be a part of, you can participate in, but you can't like
Yeah.
watch it. I mean, like, what is it to just watch or listen or something?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think that a lot of these people going to these things, engaging in these, um, sorry, I just realized I had a banner on the bottom of the screen that was completely irrelevant to a pre-recorded video.
Oh,
But the what was I saying with that? A lot of these people, they think that they are, they think that they're participating. They look at it as, we are participating in worship by, by going to these things, by engaging in these things. So I think it's important to clarify, I don't know, clarify what the difference is. Like, how is that difference? How is their level of participation different than, for example, what's going on in traditional music or culture, or what's going on in liturgical worship? because like connecting with that, you also said that I was connecting this to worship.
Yeah.
And really what the way I see it is, I know I'm not connecting it. Instead, what I'm pointing out is that culture is worship. Like that's fundamentally what it is, and that's the way everybody in a traditional context always sees it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you do, I'd like to get into this argument more later, but like everything that you do is ultimately an extension of the liturgical life of the church. And if you read medieval literature, it's obvious that they understand everything in the world around them, and especially their own lives and culture in terms of the Eucharist.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know exactly how you wanted me to pick up on that, but because you mentioned a couple of different things before switching over to the Eucharist as worship, but you'd asked like how is what somebody's doing in a contemporary worship different than traditional, and I would say one thing, like if if your singing is irrelevant, then that's a different experience. What I mean by irrelevant is like if you're singing along with a band that's playing so loud that nobody can hear you, then it does not matter if you are singing or not. I mean, it doesn't have any impact on anybody else in the room whether you sing. And I think that's a step down. I mean, if you're singing out loud while the band is playing, then like great, you're still using that body of yours for singing. But again, like properly, when you participate, you're not just singing along with a band. When you participate, you are singing like with and for everyone else in the room. Your voice is adding something to the music of the church. And again, if your voice isn't adding something to it, then that's an impoverished experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be part of my example, my answer to why it's different than what would be contemporary worship.
Mm-hmm. I guess I would ask, like coming from, like looking at this from a perspective, possibly you would say of an Orthodox Christian, how is that substantially different from Orthodox Christians? Having a choir doing all of the music. I have an answer for that, but I'd like to give you a chance to reflect on that and give your observations, and don't refrain from being critical if you feel the need to.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, for one, I would say like you don't have a choir doing everything because I mean, when I've been in Orthodox services, I've done quite a bit of singing. Right. Just even though I'm sitting in the pews and I've never heard any of this music before, like
yeah. But I would say you're like, I'll just be like frank about this. Like you're unusual in that regard. If you go to a lot of Orthodox churches, and maybe the parishes you've been to are a little bit of an exception to that, but there'll be an awful lot of people just standing there, or it would appear that way anyway.
Yeah,
a lot of the people are just standing there and not singing along.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I say, when I've been to services, there have been other people singing, and I've been joining in with other people singing. So I can't evaluate too much service or tradition that I haven't seen, haven't experienced myself. And there will be also times when a choir is singing and the people are not singing. So I mean, I still, maybe I could give a partial response to it. But I don't know. I guess I'd be interested for you to reconcile that a little bit because like I say, for me, traditional music, okay, like if you're not singing, then you're dancing. Like in traditional music, not necessarily in a traditional church service, but like in a traditional cultural involvement. There's this. I probably looked at this. Oh, we haven't posted this poem. We haven't posted the video for this, but I did this comparison of traditional and modern literature. And there's this medieval poem that I looked at that's called "Now is the Time of Christmas," and it is giving this invitation: "Let no man come into this hall, groom nor page nor yet marshal, but that some sport he bring withal. For now is the time of Christmas." So every type of person is going to come in, and every person is going to bring some type of sport with them. And then in the next verse, it's going to say, if that he say he cannot sing some other sport, then let him bring, that it may please at this feasting, for now is the time of Christmas. So if The expectation is you're going to bring a song to the festival.
Yeah.
And this is you could say a religious festival, yes, but this isn't like a church service.
Right.
So we're talking like the music of the community, maybe you could say. So you're going to come to this festival, and I expect you to bring a song. That's like plan A is bring a song that you will sing for everybody else, and that you can invite everybody else to join in with you and participate in what you're doing.
Mhm.
And if you can't sing, then bring something else, some other sport, then let him bring. But like the expectation is if you come to this festival, which I want you to, I mean, this is an invitation. The song itself is an invitation. Come be a part of this thing. So I
Right.
want you to be a part of it. And when you come, you are going to bring something that you have to offer everyone else. The basic expectation again is that means that you're going to sing for everybody else.
Yeah.
And again, like I say, if you're not going to sing, then the next most likely thing that you would do is you're just going to dance while other people are singing.
Yeah.
And then you're still a participation in the music. You're still a part of this thing that everybody is doing together just by dancing. Um, and if you're like one of these I'll just say like awkward people, because in a traditional society where everybody sings and everybody dances, I mean, in today, like if you don't sing and dance, that doesn't mean you're necessarily awkward, because nobody does. Like
Yeah.
you're a normal person if you never sing and dance.
Yeah. You're the
But in a
weird guy
traditional
if you're up there singing and dancing.
Yeah, and in a traditional society, if you don't sing and you don't dance, then we could just say like, okay, you're sort of an awkward person or something. Which you can be an awkward person, that's fine. But you'll have to come up with some other way that you can contribute and some other way that you can help bring everybody together. And maybe
Yep.
that means like you're going to wind up helping up with the food, or like the decorations or something like that.
Right.
Um, you be awkward, but find something to do. But like I say, the number one expectation is the thing that you're going to do is you're going to sing.
Yeah. So yeah, so this is all very interesting to me because like you will have a phenomenon even in like medieval and I mean even in like ancient classical cultures where there's a lot of people you could say at the festival or whatever it might be that are not really participating. And but what you will always see in the literature is that there's always kind of there's always an implicit, if not explicit, criticism of that. It's like,
Hmm.
you're just here consuming, and consuming is not what you should be
Yeah.
doing.
Right.
You should be offering something.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and so there is that element. There are going to be people who go to the dance and not dance, for example.
Hmm.
But along with what you said, that would have been the exception in the old days, whereas it's the rule today.
Yeah. Well, we've
Um,
also worked with the Caedmon's hymn just a little bit on
yeah,
this
right.
channel.
Yeah, I
That's
was going to
one of
bring
our
that example out as well.
Yeah. And in Caedmon's hymn, Caedmon is a guy that is afraid to sing, and
Mhm.
eventually he'll have this dream. He'll be visited by a man or an angel in this dream, and it tells him to sing, and he does, and he wakes up and remembers the song, and like he has gained this gift, so he spends the rest of his life composing hymns, um, the first hymns to be composed in the English language. And but the start of the story is he doesn't know anything about singing. He's always uncomfortable, and we have big parties all the time. And when we have a party, we pass the harp around, and every person at the party plays a little song on the harp and sings for everyone, and then passes the harp to the next person. Well, it would be Caedmon's turn, where he'd see the harp going around, then he would slip out of the room and leave the party.
Yeah.
But there you have this instance where the expectation is everybody can sing, and probably when it comes to playing that harp, it's going to be like tuned simply, and most people are not going to be doing anything very musically impressive on it.
Mhm.
But it's kind of like the normal thing that everybody will sing while they're striking a few strings.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is, like, an issue of pride at work in something like the story of Caedmon or the story
Hmm.
of some of the person who's not willing to participate,
Yeah,
because,
the
like,
person.
why is it that you're actually not willing? Like, it's usually, you're afraid of your own awkwardness, or you're afraid of being embarrassed or something like that.
Yeah, right.
We could go deeper into the psychology, but I don't think that's necessary for
Well, no,
this
it is
conversation.
kind of interesting though in connection with what we're talking about, because you could say like the reason you would consume music instead of creating it actually is a kind of pride, because people get embarrassed, like, oh, I'm not a very good singer and I don't want to sing. And I mean, it's just like, I don't want to do anything that might make me look foolish in front of other people.
Yeah.
Whereas the person who can set that pride aside, like, is willing to look like a fool in front of other
Yeah.
people.
But
And
but
it's funny to me to so I've spent so much time playing music that it does mean that I'm better at playing music than I used to be, or than a lot of people are. But a lot of what my experience, the way that it benefits me as a musician, is like, I don't care if I mess up anymore. Um, and there's been times when I've played music with worship groups, and people that are leading worship a lot of times are like super self-conscious about the music that they're playing and how they're going to do, and if their voice is going to sound bad on this song because it's too high or something like that, or like, boy, we didn't really practice this one enough and I hope we don't mess up. And like, there's a lot of anxiety in a lot of worship leaders
yeah.
before they start into the church service. And for me, it's like, it's actually comical to be around people that are that worried about it,
Yeah.
because for me, it's like, who cares if you mess up? Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I don't know if you remember this as strikingly as I do, but one thing I remember from our childhood is our dad telling us never to make fun of somebody for
yeah,
singing poorly in church
yeah.
because they are, they're
Anytime, never, ever.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, like any time, but like never make fun of somebody for singing because they're in the context of worship, it's like they're bringing their gift to God,
Hmm.
and you should never make them feel ashamed to do that. But like
Yeah.
that's true in worship, or not in worship, but in like traditional culture as well. Is like people are bringing their gift to the community, and in a sense that's also bringing it to God.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
like you should never make them feel ashamed that their gift isn't as good as yours. But then also what I was thinking of is like there's sort of um like this spiritual gluttony at work. um, if you think that you can just like consume the worship or consume the culture without giving anything back.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have been fed this line and convinced to believe that just their presence there and being a part of the crowd is giving something back and is contributing something back. But it's like, I don't know, these are the sort of justifications you have to come up with when you're in this system that actually have anything to offer, like where you don't actually have anything to offer. Worship is for the professionals and leave it to them. And what I was going to get at with the Orthodox Church and the criticism some people might have of the Orthodox Church, that you just have like a professional choir, the people who are like, it's their job to sing, and the people out in the congregation aren't singing, they're just kind of standing there. And what I would say is, that's actually improper. And you'll hear from a lot of Orthodox teachers, a lot of priests, bishops, and so on. It's like, no, you should be singing. You should be singing along with the hymns of the liturgy. And you should be, if you're standing there and you're not doing like, crossing yourself when you're supposed to be, and you're not doing the bows, and you're not doing the actual participatory actions that you're supposed to be doing. And again, that includes singing along to the hymns, even if you're not a good singer. It's like, no,
Hmm.
that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be bringing your gifts to God, and offering them. You shouldn't be withholding those things. That's not good. And we see that, like you mentioned, in the story of Saint Caedmon, but in so many stories from the past, that it's portrayed in a very negative light when you're not doing that.
Yeah. Right.
And so I think there's this reciprocal relationship between our non-participatory culture and our non-participatory worship. Um, and this is a problem that's known in the Orthodox churches in America, is that it's very difficult to get Americans to participate.
Hmm.
Um, and hopefully we can contribute a little bit to convincing people. It's like, even if you're a terrible singer, sing with everything you've got in the worship of the church.
Yeah.
Like that's
Well, there's also like, if you don't, you're going to remain a terrible singer. Like
Yeah,
the
right.
way to not be, and I mean, I don't mean that everybody will become like professional grade singer, and some people will be, you know, their pitch will struggle a little bit no matter how hard they work at it or whatever. But
Yeah,
like as a general rule, if you're a terrible singer and you don't sing, you will remain a terrible singer. But if you do
yeah.
sing, then you will cease to be a terrible singer.
Yeah, when it comes to singing, the parable of the talents is really an excellent model for understanding
Yeah,
how that actually works. So it's like if you are like, "Oh, I'm no good, so I'm just going to take my singing and
yeah,
bury
right.
it," then it's like then you'll never be able to sing.
Yeah. Well, in the
And like
parable of the
your
talents, it's
voice,
the guy that gets only one talent. You know, the
yeah,
other people got more talents than him, but the guy that got the least talent was the guy that buried it. So it's actually like a brilliant connection to this right here, because if you're the
yeah.
guy with the least singing ability, that doesn't give you the reason to bury that talent.
Yeah, and I've always looked at that parable that like part of the message it's being portrayed to people is like don't use your lack of talent or your
Hmm.
lack of resources as an excuse.
Yeah,
Like
right.
that's never a good excuse in the eyes of God.
Yeah.
Um, and we should really take that to heart when it comes to participating in worship. But also here we're talking about culture and in music, like participating in music. You know, how much do people love, like, for example, the kid who really can't sing, but is just, singing at the top of his voice
Yeah.
badly. But it's like it's endearing, but it's like it's also endearing, like the old lady who's doing the same
Yeah. I was going to
thing,
say they love the old person that's that way too.
right? I mean, and I would say like they'd love the middle-aged person that's doing the same thing
Yeah.
as well. And the people who don't, like the people who kind of turn up their noses, like don't worry about them. That's between them and God. Like they're at fault for having that kind of attitude. Um, and I don't know, like maybe your maybe your failure to participate because you're letting what people with bad attitudes might think or say get to you is actually preventing you. Like maybe part of the gift that I want to be careful how I say this, but maybe part of the gift that you have to offer um, is repentance for those who take things too seriously.
Hmm. Yeah,
Because like that,
I've heard lots and lots of people tell a story about, you know, this old lady that was singing in church, and she was never on key, but she really meant it. You know, I mean, like
yeah,
this this is a character type that shows up in lots and lots of people's stories.
yeah,
And for a lot of people, this becomes an image of what true faith looks like.
right,
Even though they're not a great singer, they're still giving everything they have in song.
yeah, right. Um, yeah, and I mean just to kind of preempt some possible criticisms here is like some people might say, "Oh, you're saying if you sing, then you'll be able to sing," but then you're also saying examples of people who sing but still can't sing. It's like, well, no, we're not actually saying that you're guaranteed to become a great singer if you sing, but you might.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, like, yeah, your talent will grow. I mean,
Yeah.
even the well, I guess you mentioned this with a little kid, and we do have this with a little kid too. Um, I mean, for me, I think the more that I sing, um, the more I can connect. Um, like, the more sincere I can be in my singing. And so the old lady that sings that isn't a very good singer, but still touches people's hearts. Um, I mean, I would say that that also still comes from a lifetime of singing, but
Hmm.
like the way that she's able to touch people's hearts,
Yeah.
and you know the way that she's able to let go of her pride. You said the middle-aged person can be the same way. The middle-aged person could be a bad singer, but still sing with his heart and touch people with it. But you never hear that story because the middle-aged person is too proud. but
Right.
but the old lady's been doing it long enough that she's been
Yeah.
able to work through that.
Yeah. Pride is the vocation of the middle-aged.
Yeah,
Like in a lot of ways, that's true. Um, that sort of vainglory, anyway.
yeah,
Um, pride can mean multiple different things. Yeah, I think this is all very interesting. And I don't know. I want to tie this back to like reground the conversation here. we're talking about the music industry dying, and mostly what we're talking about is why that's a good thing. And so we kind of diagnosed the
Okay,
problem.
so yeah, but it's only a good thing, and then you can continue with your thought. But like, it's only a good thing if you respond to it by saying, "Okay, what should we be doing instead?"
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you come up with the answer, which is we should be participating with one another in community through the arts.
Right. Yeah. And so like I have a really big question. That is kind of where I was going.
Hmm.
Um, so like it's a good thing. It could also be a very bad thing if we just replace art and culture with a bunch of AI slop. Then it's just going to be like doubling down on the errors that we've made. It's just going to take this problem of consumerism and just make it 100 times worse. But then there's also the possibility that this gives us the opportunity to destroy the stranglehold that the music industry has had on culture for the last, I don't know, 100 years, probably a little longer than that. But it's kind of within that time frame that traditional culture in America has just been completely destroyed by the monopolization of the music industry in particular. Um, you know, and so it's like in some ways this gives us an opportunity to reclaim what's been taken from us, but we have to be deliberate about that. Like it's not going to happen just because the music industry has been destroyed.
Hmm.
So it's like on the one hand we have a great opportunity, on the other hand we are also presented with a tremendous danger. So the question then becomes, well, how do we do the right thing here? How do we rebuild a traditional participatory culture in the world that we're faced with?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm around a lot of other professional musicians and part of a radio show that has musicians that are touring the country, mostly not big names or anything. No, nobody that you've listeners have ever heard of, but people that are making their living playing music that stop in this Wild Rose Moon in Plymouth. And so I meet all kinds of full-time musicians, and some of the people that we have through there are folkies,
Mm-hmm.
and that word means lots and lots to me and David, and to some of the audience maybe it will as well. But it's not exactly a it's kind of the F word in our house, actually.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it's kind of the kind of thing I was talking about earlier, where I mentioned that for a lot of people, traditional culture is like forensic.
Yeah. Um, well, so the some of these and these are I don't mean to come across as like totally negative toward these people, because I think what I'm about to describe I think is something like very positive. But a lot of the folkies want to they want to like return to a participatory musical culture
Yeah,
where, if they go around and they put on a concert, then they're going to pick a song, and a lot of times it will be like a spiritual or something, but not always. But we'll say they have some spiritual that's got really simple words to it that people have probably heard the tune before, and so now we can have everybody in here all singing along together.
yeah,
And there's one guy in particular, Matt Watroba, who's he's a big radio guy, and I wish I could rattle off the different radio awards that he's gotten. Um, and he interviewed Pete Seeger long ago, and Pete Seeger said the most important thing that he'd ever done in his career was put a song on people's lips.
yeah,
This is the kind of thing that we're talking about.
right.
So there are people that are trying to use folk music to sort of rebuild this kind of a culture, which I think if they can succeed, then wonderful. I just always have a kind of like skepticism that's rooted in this idea that like I'm not sure if you can do this without being religious.
Yeah,
Because the idea of let's have a bunch of people gather together and sing songs together, um, it has to be pointing towards something.
yeah. I mean, it's an inherently religious idea, and that's kind of where I was going to go. Is that I don't think that you can have culture without it being grounded in religious practice.
Hmm.
I kind of hinted that earlier when I was talking about the Eucharistic element or the liturgical element of culture, and that being a
Right.
common thing that you see, and that might not be obvious to us when we are talking about something like a public dance or something like that.
Hmm.
How are you saying this is rooted in the church? But kind of my thesis that I wanted to present along with that is that the church is always the custodian of culture, and that's part of why that's part of why I would say traditional culture has died in America, is because there is no church essentially in America, in the sense that there's not a common religious a common religious ground that unites the culture. And so since we're so scattered confessionally, so scattered religiously, that um that contributes in a large way to the complete dissolution of any kind of traditional culture. And like
Well, I think also like we've had a religion that's like, I mean, I shouldn't say a religion because different traditions obviously feel different, but there are lots of Christian traditions that just say dancing is not good. Like
yeah,
by its very nature, it is a bad activity, and it's like the use of the body. And I mean, for if the use of the body is bad, then actually singing is bad too.
mhm,
And most people don't take it to that extreme. They just stop singing with their bodies so much.
yeah, right.
That,
And then
like head to toe kind of thing.
yeah, before I go too far into that, I wanted to say like the examples that we do have of places in America where there is an actual vibrant culture, there is also like a strong identity rooted in their religious life.
Yeah, right.
And so like the Appalachian or the Ozark cultures would be prime examples of that. Um,
Right. Yeah, and the folky kind of people that are interested in this type of music like don't tend to really recognize that.
yeah,
They recognize the music of the people that comes out of those places, but they don't recognize its connection to the church.
yeah,
And when
yeah.
you
I
see
mean,
it, like these are just like super religious people. I mean, you could say like the people who sing and dance the most, the faith is their whole life,
yeah,
and,
right.
and the community of faith is their whole life.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and then I mean, like you mentioned, you do get these fundamentalist ideas cropping up, especially in the 20th century, that are detrimental to that. Like I don't know how many important musicians in preserving American or Appalachian folk music are people who like played banjo and fiddle when they were younger, and then they were convinced Christian, like they joined the church and Christians can't do this, and then later on, like when they're like elderly, like Elizabeth Cotton is an example of that actually. Like she stopped playing guitar and banjo for decades because she was baptized, and it's like good Christians can't do this. And then it was like when she's in New York, I think it was, or maybe it was Washington, and like other people got a hold of her and convinced her. It's like, no, this is not true. Like
Yeah.
this is a gift that you have to offer to the world. Um, yeah, and so I don't know.
Yeah,
There are
I
some,
wish I could remember who it was, but she wound up working for somebody that was part of one of the Seeger families.
yeah,
It wasn't Pete Seeger, but it was a relative of his that yeah,
right.
she kind of got in with that same.
Yeah, and it wasn't Pete Seeger that convinced her. Is like, you need to like you need to give this to the world.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, which is true. Um, yeah, I mean, so like it's important to nuance. Like there can be a false religious ideology that runs counter to what we're saying. But I was thinking of examples. Again, I'm going to use the example of Swiss culture just because I've studied a lot more. I know a lot more in terms of concrete examples about this. But you'll have like all of these processions. So, for example, you have the Fastnacht processions. Fastnacht is basically like Mardi Gras or Carnival in the Alemannic German tradition. So, like in Switzerland and southwest Germany. Um, and so, like, there'll be all these wild processions, but they'll always end at the church. And then you'll have these other processions in the mountain villages, like around Christmas and New Year's. Like people like processing through the streets with like bells and drums and scary masks and stuff like that. And it's like this, it's crazy, but they always end at the church. And so there's this like this is really like a throwback to a medieval concept of culture, that all culture is ultimately grounded in the church. And so like I see in these things a firm echo of that, that you're processing around with these things, but ultimately you're processing towards the church. And this to me is like an image of the concept that we're trying to talk about, that when you're participating in culture, what you are doing is you are taking your gifts, like using the example of Elizabeth Cotton, who has these tremendous gifts that she needs to offer to the world, because offering them to the world around you is also offering them to God. Like especially, this to me is what is encapsulated in the fact that these traditional processions in traditional cultures into the church is this idea that what Christianity is doing is drawing the whole world into this. There's an echo of a Eucharistic procession going on there. It's drawing the whole world into the Eucharistic procession, into participation in the liturgical life, the Eucharistic life of the church. And in case it's not clear, what I'm trying to bring out with that is that this is like a symbol for us of what is really going on, why it is that, why it is that these things are not evil, why dancing and singing and playing instruments and things like that is actually a good thing, and is actually a way in which, by serving our communities, by serving our fellow man, we are serving Christ in the church.
Yeah, you get I'm kind of like picturing the wheels within wheels as you're saying that.
Yeah,
Like
that's a good picture.
the community. Okay, so I said before, like art. Basically, I said art can't be the center. The idea of art for art's sake, or like we're going to listen to this just because the art is so good. Like you're not going. There's nothing participatory in that. And I feel like that's sort of what some of the folkies envision, because they don't quite want to go along with the religious idea. And actually, I mean, for a lot of them, the reason they don't want to go with the religious idea is because they feel like, I want everybody to be able to be a part of this, which is a positive motive. I'm getting a little distracted from what I was going to say about wheels within wheels, but that's okay. So the idea that like if we did a religious thing, then some people would feel excluded, but I want there to be a place for that person too. And so, like I say, that's not a negative thing. Like you do want to have a type of community that every person who's born into that community can be a part of it. But actually, like religion is the only thing that's going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you try to make it music, like I mean, people are probably more divided about their music than they are about their religion, actually, even though they might not argue about it as much. But like, the people that are in this type of music that listen to that, like they don't have anything to do with this type of music over here. So like, you're not going to come up with like, let's just make it folk music and then everybody can be a part of it, because everybody will center around music.
Yeah.
Just music or art doesn't have the power to be the center of a community in that way.
Yeah.
So art can't be the center. And in a sense, you could say like the community itself could be a center, which is sort of true. I mean, like everybody who's in your town is a part of your town. There's nobody who's like part of your town but is not part of your town, right? So like this is an entity that does give us a definition. This in there, and saying it in a geographical way. But could be like your extended family or something too. Like something like this can give you an identity in a sorts. But like I say, I don't think art actually can do that. People want it to, but it can't. But if you have something that can bring a community together, so now here's my community, then this community is like circling around. I'm holding a circle in my hand, like like I said, wheels within wheels. So like this thing that's the community is circling around a bigger center. Which, I mean, you could say ultimately, like the ultimate center would be Christ.
Yeah. Right.
So like whatever you have that brings people together, like if it really has the power to bring people together, then it really, like if it actually does have that power, then it actually does circle around God.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and I'm just thinking this idea of it all emanating out from a center, I mean, and that kind of ties in part of what I was trying to bring out with this idea of these traditional processions and tying this together with the liturgical procession. And I think that's where you're going with this wheels within wheels uh, symbolism. Is like that's why there are so many processions in the church and also in traditional culture, is because like it is this picture of this, I don't know, this concentric pattern of all things. And that ties in, that ties in what I'm trying to say with like these participations in your traditional culture, since your traditional culture is ultimately rooted in the church. It is why it is that I can make this argument that to participate in your culture, like looking at the story of Saint Caedmon, it's like I don't get the impression from the story of Caedmon that what they were doing in that story was actually in any way like a liturgical thing.
No, yeah,
Rather,
right.
it was just just their cultural thing. But there's still this very firm idea there that disconnecting from your people, disconnecting from your culture, and refusing to participate because of your shyness and because of your perceived inadequacy, like that is a sin. And then if you have this
Mhm.
like this concentric model, this hierarchical model, is also kind of another way of saying it, of reality, that kind of you understand where our thought process there is coming from, I would say.
Yeah, that story. I know. I mean, we summarized the story of Caedmon. Most people won't be familiar with it, but like I said, we did kind of give the overall picture of it already. But the scene that takes place in the mead hall, where people are passing around the instrument and everybody's singing, the mead hall is like a sort of pseudo sacred place,
Mhm.
anyways. So it's not exactly like just like let's go down to the bar and have a party or something.
Yeah.
It's a little different character than that, but it is this very, you could say, like secular sort of event that seems to be going on there, and yet it also has this very sacred feel to it in the story. Like,
Right.
I don't know exactly why it comes across that way, but that's actually one of my favorite things in the story, is that like this little ordinary party that people are having just feels like it's something that really matters, that
Yeah.
is sacred in that sense.
Yeah. I pivoted my chair a little bit so you could see Saint Caedmon is
Oh yeah,
in the
yeah,
conversation with us back there.
yeah. And what's that? New Ishulen Herian? Is that what that says there?
Yeah, that's the first part of Caedmon's hymn in
Yeah.
Old English. Not,
Yeah, although the idea of like it almost seems like it's something sacred. Um, Again, if it's something that like we're joining together in community to do this thing, there's not just that, but like this is an opportunity for you to either participate in virtue
mhm.
or to sin and fail to, like Caedmon does when he,
Yeah.
he leaves the party. Like the fact that it's this sort of proving grounds also gives it this kind of sacredness.
Right. And I think it's important. I think it's important that we have a culture like that where it is very much expected of you. You can try to look at it in like this modern like mental health perspective, is like, oh, you shouldn't be shaming people for having shyness, or you shouldn't, you should be accepting of them for all this. Is like, well, maybe you shouldn't be, for one thing, because maybe that's actually a personal flaw that um needs to be repented of. But also, like, if you have this kind of culture where your focus is on participation in this kind of way, then you really are training people from their youth in virtue. Um, and you
Well, you
will,
are. I mean, yeah, go for it. Go for it. I'll come
yeah,
back
I
to
was going to say,
virtue.
you will facilitate this ethos in people, this culture in people, where the mindset is, I need to constantly bring what I have and offer it to my culture, and offer it to the
Yeah,
church, offer it to God. And that is something that is very, very much missing from American culture,
yeah.
American Christianity. Like churches in America really, really struggle to pay their bills. Churches really struggle to find priests or clergy and things like this, because we do not have this culture where we are, like, this mindset is instilled in us as Americans, to serve the world around us, to serve the church, to serve our communities.
Hmm.
And instead, like in close connection to the criticisms we were having of consumerist entertainment, we do have this mindset that the culture exists to serve us, that the church is supposed to be providing us with what we need for salvation, and so we're consuming in worship, we're consuming in our practice, and so on. And like I said, this kind of spiritual gluttony, it's this consumerist religion or this consumerist culture, and this is a real problem. And I don't know, this, I guess what I'm bringing out with that is the necessity and the goodness of having this kind of participatory culture, because you do train people up from their youth with the mindset, and but then also like practicing it on this low level of things, like it does kind of rewire your mind, rewire your brain into thinking this way, into seeing the world around you in this way, in the sense of what are the gifts that I have, what are the offerings that I have that I can offer to the people around me. And I think that's something very, very important that our culture should be cultivating in people, and American culture does not.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to repeat that idea of, you said a participatory culture trains you in virtue.
Yeah.
And I will wind up just kind of repeating some of the things that you had, but like virtue, like by its etymology means manliness, is what it means, because vir is man in
Yeah.
Latin, so virtue is manliness basically. But what manliness is take your strengths and bend them toward the service of the community.
Yeah.
And like whether you teach this lesson through initiation ritual, or whether you teach this through you could say epic storytelling, the people talk about the hero's journey a lot, which is like this pattern that epic stories follow. And basically, the hero's journey is like this departure from home, and you move into the world that you don't understand, problems that you've never encountered before, and you go through really difficult times. You go through a kind of death to the self,
Mm-hmm.
and then you rise again out of that, and then you return back home with new gifts, with new powers, or whatever it may be. And now that you return home, you're able to use everything that you gain on the journey in service to the community. And the reason that this is the story structure that repeats over and over again is because this story exists to tell young people, to tell young boys on the cusp of manhood, what it means to be a man. So the storyteller is using the story to say, okay, now that you're a man, this is what we expect of you.
Yeah.
Now that you're a part of this community, this is what we expect of you. We expect you to go through difficult things and to learn from them. And we expect you to take what you learn. We expect you to take your strengths and bend those toward the service of the community. So, I mean, you could say like that's, if you think of the religious, the epic or the initiation as being like kind of the religious center of a culture, then you would say like what that means is that the center of your culture would be like just exactly that, like participate, and take your gifts and turn them toward the service of the community. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so that's a really interesting connection to me to say like that's actually what singing together is all about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's just a good way to put it. I don't know that I have a lot more to say on that point.
Well, we probably don't want to say a whole lot more on too many other points.
Yeah.
Because we're not at an hour yet. We're getting sort of close to that. We had we mostly focus on music. We did kind of indicate that we might mention some other things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we really need to expand these ideas too much. But I started off by saying like people say the same thing. Like we have concerns about like, oh, Disney used to be so good and they're falling apart, and there's nobody making good movies now, and isn't that terrible? And then on top of that, we have this concern of like, oh, now I don't know, are we going to have AI actors playing these parts, and what a downfall this will be for humanity if such a thing were to happen. But again, with movies, we have this kind of consumer culture. We've had in our entertainments a sort of progression where like we start off with participatory culture, and then we move into like say you could go to a play, and that's put on by people that are part of your community, and you're there together with other people that are part of your community.
Yeah.
Okay, but you replace the play with a movie, and the movie is not put on by people that are part of your community, but you're at least gathered together in the theater with other people that are part of your community.
Yeah.
But then we move to like the television that's in your home, and then it's like, okay, well, you're not with people in your community anymore when you're watching it on your own television, but at least you're with your family. And
Yeah.
then now we put it all on the cell phone, so now you don't even watch it with your family, you just watch it on your own device,
Yeah.
like in your totally individual isolated world. So like we keep getting excited about these new possibilities, these new forms of entertainment, but every step along the way they become more and more isolated. And
Yeah.
people also kind of lament that like we're not watching the same program, so you can't even talk with your friends about the thing you watch, because in the old days they would have seen it, or they would have at least heard of it to know what it is. But now you don't even have that much. So just increasingly, our entertainment has become more and more isolated, more and more about like you and your own private experience.
Yeah.
So again, like if these things die, if the movies die, I guess if the answer is just like check out your own phone and like become absorbed in your own individual world, well, that's not a positive improvement.
Yeah. Right.
But if the idea is like, hey, we could just be a part of a play, or we can go and watch the local kids putting on the play at school or something like that, or whatever. Like if the death of the movie industry like actually opens up your eyes to say, what can I do with other people that are actually part of my world, then it can be a huge improvement.
I have to think of, while you're talking about that, of the Oberammergau passion play. I think it's a passion play, isn't it? The story, like the village in Germany that was spared from the plague, and so they like, I think with like maybe like 2 or 3 years where they didn't do it, they've basically every year since then done this same play, put on the same play. Um, and what I was thinking of with that is, even with what you're talking about with like that's definitely a positive motion. But if you contrast that with medieval theater or classical theater, um, I don't know if this is a Renaissance development where you start getting these plays that are more like our modern sensibility of theater, instead of instead of like theater in the past is going to really focus on participation, like communal participation in the stories that are central to the identity of that community. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, obviously for
Yeah, yeah,
Christians, passion plays are a major part of that, or the mystery plays of like the
right.
medieval English uh, guilds. But then also the sort of plays that you have, like you know the Athenian plays and things like that. I also
Mm-hmm.
really like the idea that for a lot of these cultures, the actors in these plays actually are not professional actors.
Yeah.
Maybe they're like chosen by lot out of the people to be the actors. And that also reminded me, like, I'm not certain if this is true or not, but I think I've read that in the Hagia Sophia in Constantinople, they had, of course, they'd have the chanters, but then they'd also have the choir, and men were chosen out of the congregation of Constantinople by lot to serve on the choir for a time. And I just
Yeah.
think, like this so much shows the sort of attitude that people had towards participation. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, if you have a church as massive as the Hagia Sophia in a city as massive as Constantinople, um, having like true congregational singing becomes kind of challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like that's just like an interesting solution that shows, like, even the Grand Imperial Church doesn't have this like this professional choir, um,
Yeah.
in the same sense. Um, yeah, but those are all just kind of, I don't know, different directions my mind went while you were talking. There is that there's even a higher level of the concept that you're talking about, in which our stories themselves are participation in the history and the life of our culture, our people, and our ancestors. And with I don't know, the rise of true fiction in terms of literature and theater, I
Mm-hmm.
think I think there's like another degree of separation that's been put between us and that.
Yeah.
I mean, the exception of that is like we do have a lot of like historical plays. People will put on like Paul Revere plays or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing, like a participation in the story of your people. And like I would firmly advocate for things like that. And it's not to say that you can't have your I don't know, your Rogers and
Finding Nemo
Hammerstein
plays.
Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
um,
I just say that because it just seems like every year one of the schools around here, like the elementary school, will do some Finding Nemo play or something like that. So it comes up over and over again. Lots of adaptations of Disney plays.
yeah,
Which I can see why you would do that as a school, because it's a lot easier to get people excited about, oh yeah, I'll come and watch this thing that was a movie when I was a kid, and now my kid's acting in the play for it.
yeah.
So there's a reason why people do it, but it does kind of disappoint me that like this is what we think of when we think of theater as an adaptation of a Disney play or of a
Yeah.
Disney movie.
Well, it's kind of like the concept I was trying to talk about, only it's like collapsed that into like a single generation, where you want your kids to participate in the things that were meaningful for you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not quite the same as participating in like the grand epic
Yeah,
of
right,
your
right.
society.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you
Um,
could say traditionally the things that were meaningful to you were also meaningful to your parents and to your grandparents,
yeah, right.
rather than just always being some novel thing.
Yeah, but also like the idea of meaningful to me, I think, is a novel concept.
Say again.
I said I think the idea of things being meaningful to me personally is kind of
Okay,
a
I got you.
novel concept.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, very individualistic. I mean, I
Right.
was talking about that shift to individualism mostly in 20th century entertainment. Although then we get the smartphone, like the phone, I guess, is more 21st
Okay.
century the way we use it.
Yeah. So
Um,
so maybe to wrap up this conversation, do we have like some real quick practical ideas that we can throw out here?
Okay,
Maybe what we're
boy,
talking
that's good. Good question. It would be nice if we did, because so much of this stuff seems hard to implement. Like, it. I mean, frankly, like we try to invite people over here. We had a fire last night and invited a couple people, and like anytime we try to invite somebody to something, like maybe one person shows up or something. But
about. Right. Well, that's
like
just because people don't like you.
it's kind of, I mean, it could be, but it's just like, um I don't know, I mean, other people that are adults with children that, like, you got busy lives, and like
Yeah.
the idea of actually doing something in community. And so, I mean, I don't know, nobody else is well, I shouldn't say nobody else, but like a lot of other people in our lives aren't trying to do anything to draw people together.
Yeah.
And
Like
when we do try, when we do try, we have very limited success.
yeah, and like in the Mennonite church that I left, like a major warning sign that this community was about to just collapse upon itself was the fact that we had all these community events that we did, and that had been like major staples of the local community for a long time, and then suddenly people were complaining. It's like, it takes so much time and effort to put on this consignment sale or whatever it might be, and or like increasingly it like becoming increasingly challenging to get people to participate in church events and community events. And I'll
Hmm.
just at this is like, man, this is bad. Like
Yeah.
our cohesion has broken down, and if we are valuing like I you almost hate to say this in a modern context, but if you're valuing your family more than the community, I think there's a real danger that starts to pop up there,
Well,
because
if you frame it like that, like you're not seeing your family as
yeah,
nested within
right.
the community. I
That's
mean,
where I
like
was
I
going
will
with that.
say, I feel a lot closer to my wife when um, we are a part of something bigger. Like when
Yeah,
we're connected to extended family. We're like when we are with other people together, and I don't mean like, I mean when that's a pattern of our life versus the times when that's less a pattern of our life.
right.
Like
Yeah, I mean,
the more we are engaged with the broader world, the closer that we are together, and the more that we are isolated by ourselves, like the weaker everything feels.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just gonna real quick throw in, like, that's part of the ongoing argument I'm putting together in defense of icons, is that what you're describing is a problem. Like, well, for example, we all know and are taught that in order for a marriage and a relationship to be successful, it has to be grounded in Christ and in the church.
Mm-hmm.
That has become a completely disembodied and abstract concept, and so it doesn't have any actual meaning. Nobody knows how to actually live that out.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, we're kind
Yeah,
of getting
well, I mean,
away.
it starts, I mean, I mentioned that community circling around Christ ultimately. Like,
Right?
um,
Yeah.
you might not be able to grasp how is my marriage supposed to be grounded in Christ, but
Yeah.
it's not that difficult to think of, like, how can my family be connected to the community? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that could be a complex problem in some way, but that's a problem like you can see the solutions as they appear before you.
What? Yeah, it's like you have to see, for one thing, you have to understand the church as the center of your community, and so your community is an extension of the church, and you also have to understand the church as like the physical. I'm combining physical and visible as the visible, like the physical the visible body of Christ. So it's like the in many senses, in many ways, an icon of Christ, that you have like this concept that's present like right away, like for example in the writings of Saint Dionysius, which I believe are authentic, that, like, this really important concept for Christians is that, these like the invisible God is not something that can be perceived by beings of sense, which is us
Hmm.
as humans. And
Yeah.
so you do need a visible image of the invisible God. And of course we understand that that is Christ in his incarnation, but like that is something that still has continued meaning to us as Christians. And it's like, so you need, what I'm trying to say is, being engaged in your community, being engaged in the life of your church, is what it actually means for these things to be rooted and grounded in Christ, because your community is the icon of Christ. It is the image of Christ. You can't separate those concepts. And kind of what I'm trying to draw out, like real briefly, in with that, is just this idea that this is the sort of problem that we have run into in modern Christianity by reducing everything to disembodied abstractions. Like these are just spiritual ideas, or ideas detached from physical
Yeah.
reality. It's
Well,
like
and
they
like
stop
kind of
actually
the
meaning
conclusion
something.
of what you're saying is that um, that like part of the embodiment is like part of the embodiment of God is your neighbor.
Right. Yes. Yeah, so going back with that to the question I was asking, like, what are some practical answers? Like, I have a few suggestions,
Okay,
but
so yeah, I was just I did start off by saying like there's a difficulty in just like throwing a party. There's a difficulty in saying
yeah,
like let's just play music and have a bunch of people come and gather around the music.
yeah,
And I think ultimately, um, you sort of mentioned over and over again this idea of culture being rooted in the church. I mean, I think there's a sense in which like any true culture, um, I think just has to begin in the church and
hmm,
grow outward from there. So I
yeah,
mean, like within your churches, sing together as much as possible. I mean, I hope to see like a big time like revival of people actually singing together.
yeah,
But I think like that would have to begin in a church. I think. I mean,
yeah,
if it could happen in a different way, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I'm not saying this is like a like this is my religious fanatical position that you can only have culture if you're in the church. I'm just like I've
yeah,
thought about this question a lot in terms of like how are people trying to establish a culture. And when I mentioned these folk musicians that are trying to do this thing, um, if they could succeed at it, I would think that would be great. I just don't think they can succeed at it.
yeah,
I mean, like I think I'm looking at this problem in actually a very practical way when I say I think it actually has to just begin in the church,
yep.
because in the church you can convince people that it's good to sing together. Let's all join together and do this thing.
Yeah.
Think even like just eating a lot of meals together as with a church,
Hmm.
I think is great. I think
Yeah.
I think really, frankly, like connection to the traditional calendar of the church also is good, because now you have these if you engage in the church calendar, even like in this very broad, like if you're like super Protestant tradition and you don't want to, you're like, you don't know what to do with the saints or don't want to engage in that part of it or something, but like even just like making a big deal out of things like Pentecost and like the Annunciation, like these events that are in the Bible that are commemorated on the church calendar. Like if you just like focus on those things, then now throughout the year you have these different excuses to get together and celebrate something together as a people.
Well,
Um,
yeah,
you
and like,
like bring in your music, bring in your prayers together,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
whatever you can fit in.
But like it extends beyond that, like for the Orthodox Church,
Oh yeah,
because
yeah, yeah. I'm just saying, like, what can people do now? Like, well, here would be a good place to
uh,
start. Like,
yeah,
just look at this very simple tradition of the church that doesn't. You don't have to change your theology. Like I say, no matter who you are, if you're some Protestant tradition, you don't have to change your theology to say like, let's just have a feast
yeah.
celebrating the Annunciation.
Well, yeah, yeah, and like, because like what you have in traditional Christianity is this idea that we are all living the same pattern of life. We're all living out the same story. Protestants might want to see this as like oppressive. It's like, oh, it's controlled what you're talking about and what you're thinking about, and it's like, no, I mean, yes, yes, and no. It is kind of controlled, but that's not actually a bad thing. This rugged, like this absolute individualism, disunites people. It splinters us and it fractures us. It is, I mean, it's diabolic. It really is the best, and in the sense that it is divisive. It is breaking
Hmm.
apart the unity, and so we are all participating in this. We're united, but also in our feasting and our fasting. So like we're fasting together. We're going through hardships together, and complaining to each other about, I'm hungry and I want some meat, and my body craves these things and I'm struggling with the fast. But then we're also sharing in the joy of feasting together, and you extend that, like you're saying, we need to have more and more community events. Most Orthodox parishes have some kind of community event, some kind of church event. Like maybe it's for the whole community, maybe it's just for the church. Either way is actually fine, even if it's just for your
Hmm.
parish people and local community people
Yeah.
are
Well,
showing
I would
up.
say
Like,
I think probably the ideal is to have both,
yes, yes,
like when I was talking about the marriage, it's like I don't want to make this sound like I have to be around other people in order to get along with my wife. I'm saying like
yeah,
when this is a pattern of life, that's when it goes well. But
yeah,
like,
yeah,
ideally you'd have like, okay, this period of my life, or this evening right here or whatever it is, like this is devoted to my wife, and
yeah.
this other period over here, like this is my wife and our children together, and this period over here we're with our extended family. Like, to be the healthiest, you'd have like specific times when you're engaged in each of those.
Hmm. Yeah, right. And like I was saying, like what that means practically is this: like a healthy relationship needs to be rooted and grounded in the church. I think about, like, there's events. So like, for example, we had the video where we visited St. George Antiochian Orthodox Church in Fishers, basically Indianapolis. Um, and they have, every year they have a huge festival, their Middle Eastern festival, which is kind of like a celebration of their Middle Eastern heritage and culture. So they'll have like traditional Middle Eastern music and dancing, Middle Eastern food, all this stuff going on. And I think there's something like 60,000 people that attend that event. And the Greek church in the Indianapolis area has their huge Greek fest. It's kind of the same thing. And that's an example of the right sort of thing. Um, and one thing I will point to, like St. George, it seems like their festival is becoming increasingly more participatory, like with having their young people uh, participate in the dancing instead of just bringing in, like they do bring in a professional dance group, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But then also having their young people dancing, and then and an important part of these festivals is like there's also always a part where anybody can come in and dance.
Hmm.
Like anybody in the crowd can come in and participate. And I'm an example of the wrong sort of person because I don't participate in the dancing because I don't know how to dance.
Yeah.
Um, but it was like, it's just also interesting to me being at another parish in Bloomington for their festival. And it's like one of the things that was going on was just like a bunch of us people just got in a big line and we're learning how to dance. It's just like, yeah, this is the sort of thing that should happen. Now, it just so happens in these examples, it's kind of a foreign culture. And I'm an advocate for the fact that we actually have an American culture that includes dancing, includes music. Like we have our own music and dancing, and
Yeah.
I would like to see that becoming increasingly part of these Orthodox kind of festivals that we have. And it's something I think it's going to take a lot of work, and we don't want to, like, I guess I'm kind of making a proposition here to Orthodox Christians and to Orthodox churches, and hire me and John to come and provide the music and our family. We'll do it. Like, that's not a joke.
Yeah.
Like, we mean that. We'll do it. We'd love to do that because we'd love to promote this. We'd love to help this like actually happen. Um, but you know, it'll probably take a lot of time and effort to to build this up, and it's not going to be something like resurrecting the culture, the American culture that existed 100 years ago. But you can kind of use that as a basis for building, like rebuilding an American culture that's rooted in the religious life of the church. So that's kind of like my practical solution to all the things that we've been talking about here.
Yeah, I think it will happen. I mean, I think what's happening right now is that there are a lot of people taking an interest in all kinds of traditional Christianity.
Yeah.
I say all kinds because I mean, obviously, there's a huge interest in Orthodoxy that's just exploded over the last few years. But there's a lot of interest in traditional Catholicism, and there are a lot of people a lot of Protestants that are getting really excited about like their deep traditions
Yeah.
in ways that they weren't before. And I think of like Redeemed Zoomer, like doing like really advocating for these mainline denominations that I don't know. I mean, again, like 5 or 10 years ago, like you wouldn't find anybody advocating for mainline Christianity from this traditional perspective the way that he is. So you get all kinds of people that are taking this deep interest in traditional Christianity. So that's what's happening right now. And in as much as this movement bears fruit, then I think, just like I was saying, like I think culture has to develop out of the church. I think first what people are going to do is they're going to become deeply rooted in the traditional church. And then what's going to happen is that will expand outward, and probably it will move in the very direction that you're describing of people in America, people trying to find um, it's a little trickier in America because we've been so divorced from our tradition. Like anywhere else where if the Greek church has connections to traditional Greek culture, like it always had those connections.
Yeah. Right.
But like the American Orthodox Church, like this is a church that's forming in a place that already doesn't have a culture at all. So it'll be, I hate to try to predict what will happen, but I think in short, like what will happen is people will take interest in the church, and that will grow out into culture more broadly. And maybe that means traditional music. Maybe it will mean something else. But I think that will happen. I mean, I think like that's over the next, I don't know, I would think it'd be a fairly long time frame for that. Maybe in 20 years or something like that. Then we'll see those types of like you have your Greek festival. Maybe in 20 years you'll have your American music festival that would be put on by the American Orthodox Church or something.
Yeah.
I
I'm.
think again in the short term, like I think people will re-engage with traditional Christianity.
Yeah.
I think they'll re-engage with the traditional music of the church before they expand outward.
Yeah. And I think it's something that can happen. And I think, like, yeah, like you say, in 20 years, maybe you'll see it. That kind of requires us to be getting started now.
Yeah,
So
right, right.
like I am kind of serious. I'm not just kind of serious. I'm very serious about this. So I'll kind of like reiterate what I said is like, we're here available and we know how to do the things that we're talking about. And if there are other parishes, preferably if you're like reasonably local to Indiana or the I don't know, the central Midwest. I don't know what you call this part of the Midwest. If you're reasonably local, reasonable traveling distance for us, like, and you find this idea of exciting, like seriously, get in touch with us, and we'll make that happen. Because it's definitely something that I really want to promote. I think John would love to be a part of it as well. And yeah, I do kind of have this dream, like it'd be great to get a whole bunch of Orthodox people excited about incorporating, like, I don't know, like bluegrass type music, traditional American music, like authentic American folk music of different kinds. There's more than just bluegrass, all of these things into the Orthodox Church and the expression of the Orthodox sense of faith as lived out in the community of the church. Hey, like, I'm very much serious about that. Hopefully this can be a call to action, and some people will respond and help get the ball going a little more.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I can get to play music, then I'm happy with that.
Yeah,
And
right.
I mean, I think I'm also at a stage where, like, the more and more I can do that in the service of the church, the better. And for a Mennonite or Protestant background, then that would mean like playing religious music all the time. But as we're talking about today, like, I think actually you can do other things, other types of music that actually are still in the service of the church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I guess I would love to. I'd love to have this conversation with more people, and see this go further. That's I guess, kind of one of my my agenda items for this video was to kind of get into conversation with more people and get more people interested in this idea. So hopefully we do a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Make
Yeah. The
something
other
out.
thing, and I've been talking to you about this for a while, but I think in the very short term, I think there will be a lot of interest in people learning how to sing, and people learning how to sing church music.
Yeah.
So I would expect a big boom in you could just say traditional church music
Yeah.
first, and I think that'll happen soon. I mean, we also are involved in Sacred Heart shaped note singing, which has a singing school tradition.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, which
I
I'll interject there real quickly. Like, that's another thing. Like, me and John will go and help your parishioners learn how to sing.
Yeah, I think,
Like,
what
we
I've been
would we
saying
would
to
love to
you
do
is,
that
like,
as well.
I think in just a couple of years, like, the idea of a singing school instructor, like, I think that would actually become a viable occupation really soon,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I think there will be a really huge demand for people that say, "Hey, my parents don't know how to sing. I don't know how to sing, but I want to know how, and I'm with a church of people that wants to know how to sing."
yeah. Right.
Um, so
Yeah, I was just
I think actually that would be like a wonderful life, would be like traveling around teaching people how to sing.
yeah, I was
Like
just speaking with
giving that
a
gift would be wonderful. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. I was just gonna say I was just speaking with an Orthodox priest a week ago, as of the time of recording this video, and he just like mentioned, like, we're thinking about like trying to get together some classes or something to teach our you know teach not just at his church but parishioners in the central Indiana area, like provide some resources so people can learn how to sing. And it's
Hmm.
like, well, interesting that you should mention that.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that's definitely, like, these are all practical things. Like, I want to stress, like, our our mindset here at the Sacred Life is not to just simply talk about things, but to also do things as well. And these are both good examples of, here we're talking about a subject, and then we have something concrete that we can offer as practical solutions to the problems that we're
Hmm.
talking about. So we're not just theorizing. It's like we're actually interested in doing these things that we're talking about, and if you're interested in that as well, like certainly please reach out to us and let's have that conversation.
Yeah. I think we're probably better wrap this up though.
Yeah, I think
So,
so too.
um, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, right. Likewise. And once again, wish you all. I guess we're closing, so just wish you all peace in Christ.